Good morning, everyone. My name is Eden Richardson, and I'm very excited to have special guest Rylan Teague with us today. We're so excited that you have joined us for this episode of She Flourishes, a podcast by women and for women. And so I'm super excited for you to hear from Rylan today. And so, Rylan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Rylan Teague. I've been a member of First Baptist Church since I was a child. I have a very rare disease, and so it's impacted my faith a lot, and so I'm excited to share all about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm super excited for Rylan to share her story and her testimony. Rylan's a part of our college ministry here at First Baptist, and so we're so thrilled to see what God's going to share, what we're going to share today and what God's going to do through what you share. And so the first question I want to ask you is to just share your testimony and how what you have been through has really impacted your faith.
So I have a very rare mitochondrial disease, which is one of the rarest in the world. And so it is basically, it's called Pearson's syndrome. Mm-hmm. And it is basically where you have a deletion in the mitochondria DNA. And it replicates itself over and over. And it causes a lot of problems. So I'm legally blind. I'm deaf, I have diabetes, it causes a lot of other problems. I have a pacemaker, and so over time, it just gets worse and worse. But I am the oldest in the world that there has ever been.
Wow.
I am almost 23, so that's pretty much what it is in an easier way to put it.
Yeah, and how cool to see how God has just worked in and through you through this. And so you had mentioned when we talked separately, apart from this podcast, how your mom has really impacted your faith as well and your journey with what you have. And so in light of it being Mother's Day, and we're coming up on Mother's Day, would you just share how your mom has really impacted your faith?
So I was diagnosed at 6 months old, and my mom has always been kind of my rock. Yeah. Because she was always the person that kind of was just she impacted me in the way that I looked at things. She always was just okay, there's somebody that's always got it worse than you. We're just going to take it like that and deal with it, and we will handle it. Yeah. And she always just showed me, you can't, get mad. There's got to be a reason for this, and we'll just keep on going and keep on pushing through it.
Yeah. And mothers are so important. And I think about how my own mother has impacted my faith and part of my story. And I think I told you a little bit about this when we talked and we met earlier. But when I was in middle school, I had anorexia. And so it was a really hard time of my life. And it was through that the Lord really taught me what it looks like to be made in His image. I remember my mom growing up, and during that time of my life, she would get Post-it notes and write verses on them and put that in the mirror when I would get ready in the morning. So that was the truth that I would see over myself. And so I think, in light of Mother's Day, it's so important to focus in on how our mothers have really, and even our grandmothers have helped us grow in our walk with Christ. So thank you for sharing that, Rylan. That's so encouraging. So you've got to do a lot of cool things. One of those things is back in 2023, you got the chance to go to Israel.
Yes.
And you were baptized in the Jordan River. How neat is that? So tell us a little bit about your experience there.
So, I had the dream of going to Israel all of my life, pretty much. But my mom was always oh, I don't think so. I don't think we should go. It may not be, safe. And so I asked my mom when I was about to turn 21, can we go for my birthday? Because it had always been my dream. And so she was like, I feel like this is a good time. Yeah. So we went. So my dreams were always to get to go and get baptized where Jesus got baptized. So I got to do that. And, going around, we didn't want to do, tour groups the entire time. Yeah. Because, I'm a foodie. I love food. I was I don't want, them to choose the food. So we did day tours instead. Yeah. And so all of the people always just instantly knew that, I could not see. And every day we would have different people, and they were from all over the world. and they would just help me get around because it's very difficult to get around because it's so old. They would just be like, here you go.
Yeah.
Half of them couldn't even speak English, but they knew to help me. And so, like, when I got baptized, the cool thing was there was a couple there that was from Boca Raton. And so they were like, oh, okay. So they really loved us. And so the lady, her name was Cindy. And so to get baptized, you have to get your own, like, minister or pastor, whatever.
Gotcha.
And so you have to bring it yourself. Well, we could not figure it out. But I was like, Mom, I have to get baptized while we're here. So the lady said, hey, I already have one. You can use mine.
Wow.
And so I just, like, when I got done, I got out and I busted out crying. And, like, she came over and hugged me and was just like, you were so welcome. She was like, you were so sweet. And so it was just, like, a really great experience. And, like, I am not a very emotional person. I usually just take on stuff and deal with it. But, like, I prayed and prayed before we got to do everything. I was like, God, just let me feel this because I can't see, but I think it meant more because I could feel the emotion, but I may not have been able to see it. And actually, I am very glad I couldn't see that water because it was very dirty.
That's funny.
But yeah, so it was an amazing time. I said, like, I've been on other trips. So I said there was no other trip I have ever been on that meant that much. It was so emotional to me that, like, honestly, I was almost, like, depressed when we left because of how much it meant to me. And, like, we also got to see, like, Jesus's tomb. Wow. And I got to go to all these different places. And it was just, like, you felt it, you know? Like, you were like, can you believe that this is where Jesus walked?
Yeah, that's amazing. And I remember even when I went to Israel in 2015, it was after I graduated from high school. And we went to Israel and kind of the similar things that you were saying that you experienced. You know, I remember us walking different places in Israel and we would open the scriptures. And I remember one of the days we were there, we read the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000, right? Yeah. And we were standing in that field where that happened. And how impactful it was in my own faith to actually be in this setting where some of these stories took place. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, it just solidifies. These are real historical events that happen in the Bible. They're not make-believe. They are true and they are real. And I remember we got the chance to walk through the Garden of Gethsemane one day, and I just, you know, those scriptures that where Jesus was praying the night before he was crucified, you know, I was reading those as I was walking through the garden, and just so how amazing that was to experience that. I'm so glad I did. I've noticed one of the things when we were in Israel, so the food, I loved the food. We ate falafels and shawarma and all kinds of things. But I noticed for dessert, I don't know if you experienced this, like what they eat for dessert over there are dates. Like that's kind of what they're, and the coffee is very sloshy. It's like Turkish coffee. I remember it being very strong. You took like one sip and you were good for the rest of the day. But yeah, and we got the chance to go actually in the Dead Sea. And the mineral content is so high that you actually can float on top of the water. It was so neat. So yeah, I loved my time there. I would go back, and I'm sure you would too.
I would.
So what a cool experience that we both get to share, and how neat it was that you were baptized in the Jordan River. And I think there's going to be some pictures that you're going to get to see, ladies, as we're talking about this trip from Rylan being baptized in that river. So, I want to talk a little bit about what the Lord, what you sense the Lord is calling you to, because you are here on purpose and for His purpose. And so, I want to ask you that question.
So, my mom actually was out of town for a work trip. And so I was actually like supposed to like take care of all the dogs. And so I was very stressed. My friends were all going off to college and I was not. And so I had gone to the Billy Graham Library that day, and I was like, he had a purpose. Mm-hmm. And so I prayed that night. I was like, God, please just help me figure out what I'm meant to do. And I instantly, like that, went to sleep, and I had this dream. I was in some other country. Somebody was helping me get around. And I heard this voice that said Rylan Missions. So I instantly woke up, and I was kind of freaked out at first because I was like, I thought my dad was waking me up, like in the night, but nobody was in there. But I just felt this like feeling like somebody was in the room with me. And so when my mom got home from that work trip, I was like, Mom, I'm meant to do missions. I didn't know what it was exactly. I had had a few opportunities to go on like mission trips, but they all fell through. So one time I was supposed to go to Haiti. Well, then all of those missionaries, they got like kidnapped. Mm-hmm. So my mom was like, I definitely don't think that's where we're supposed to go. Yeah. So then I got offered to go to Albania, but then my grandmother, she actually passed away, and so I didn't get to go on that trip either. So then this came about to do the podcast, and I was like, my grandma actually was like, Rylan, missions don't always have to be you going somewhere. It's right. Just sharing your testimony and trying to, I guess, impact people. And she was like, so maybe something else, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's why I think I am meant to do missions, but maybe in a different way, like this, or speaking to people about like what I've been through.
Yeah, and you're so right. Missions can be anywhere. I think about Matthew chapter 28, when Jesus says, go and make disciples. Well, that word go simply means as you are going. So as you are going about your daily life, whether the Lord has called you overseas or he's called you to be faithful where you are here in Rock Hill, we're called to make disciples. And so I'm thankful and excited for the opportunities that God is going to give you and has given you to do just that. Well, as we wrap up this podcast, Mother's Day is coming up, and we've actually got a women's event in our church on May the 10th from 9 to 11 a.m. called Pray Like This, Learning to Pray for the Harvest. And I'm super excited about that event because Dr. Kelly King is going to be coming that day. She used to be over women's ministry for Lifeway. And at this event, because it is Mother's Day weekend, we're going to invite and allow young girls to come with their grandmothers and their mothers to this event. And so I'm excited for the ways that they're going to get to grow in their faith as well. So I want to ask you, because, you're almost 23, right? Yeah. And so you are a role model for younger girls. And so I want to ask you, what's a note of encouragement that you would like to say to young girls who are currently growing in their walk with Christ?
I think best way to put it, you just always have to keep, positivity in whatever you're going. And if you're going through a tough time or whatever, just know that God has a plan for you and there is a reason for this. Because with my disease, there are a lot of things I've gotten to do that I wouldn't have been able to do without it. Yeah. And so I think just always try to keep positivity and just keep working through whatever you are going on, because God does have a plan for you.
Yeah, that's right. He always has a plan. I think about Pastor Hogg's message yesterday at church about leaving a legacy, and we're called to press on in our faith, even when times are hard. We're called to praise God when times are good, and also to praise God when times are not so good. And so I'm thankful for the ways that I've seen you do that in your own life. And so, ladies, I hope that you were encouraged by Rylan. I know that I sure was. And so, Rylan, thank you for coming on today to this podcast.
Of course, I'm very honored to be able to do this.
Yeah. So, ladies, we look forward to tuning in with you guys for our next episode. And so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much.